Thank you all so much for joining me on The Key to Happiness is Satisfaction. I'm Dr. Jennifer Guttman. After 30 years as a clinical psychologist, I saw firsthand how many people felt like they were failing at being happy, which is why I wrote my new book, Beyond Happiness, The 6 Secrets of Lifetime Satisfaction, as a way to start a satisfaction revolution. I'm so excited today to be joined by Dr. Amber Dalsin, a psychologist, couples therapist, and the host of the Relationship Psych podcast. She has a lot to say on this topic. She's an incredibly accomplished author, speaker, and on a variety of mental health topics. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Okay, why don't I just dive in with some questions? How did you get started working with couples, and why did you choose to work with them on how best to communicate most effectively?
Well, I decided to start working with couples. So I did my master's in marriage and family therapy, and I was like in the family side of things, but you have to learn the marriage side in a marriage and family therapy degree. And then I found myself shortly after finishing the degree, I got married, and then 10 months later I got divorced. And I thought, well, that wasn't exactly how I thought that was going to go. I thought, you get married, it lasts forever. That's awesome. Everybody's so happy. But that wasn't my story. I think I knew 2 weeks before the wedding. I called my best friend in the middle of the night and was like, I think I need out of this. And everyone just told me, oh no, you're just having wedding jitters. Like, it's normal, but turns out I shouldn't have been getting married. But I just never wanted that to happen again. I never wanted to be in that position again. So I then hit like all of the marriage books that we had in school. So I started like flipping through them and really learning a lot about relationships. And because I really dove into it on a personal level, then it translated into my work. And I was always kind of working with couples. But when I became more well-versed in the research, when I started really educating myself, it became fun to also do with other people as well. And so eventually I just started doing more and more couples work. And today I think, originally I started family therapy because that was my lived experience. My family needed family therapy. And then, so I just kind of find that as my passions change because of my lived experience, the work the literature I dive into that I'm passionate about has changed as well. So at the current phase of my life, couples therapy matters so much to me because I'm now in a very happy marriage. But, I had no idea I could get in a relationship, but I couldn't stay in a relationship. And I had no idea how to do that. And so I thought, hey, if I didn't know how, and I've even been to school for it, there's got to be so many other people that don't know how. And I'm just really passionate now about helping people create those awesome relationships where they can communicate, where they love each other. And hopefully, we can all withstand that test of time in this loving, happy partnership. So that's the short answer.
Your story is so inspiring. I mean, it's brave to do what you did and then to pivot like that and change your life in that way. It's really inspiring. It's amazing.
Thanks.
Can you talk a little bit about, this leads into this question actually very nicely. Can you talk about situations where you've noticed in your life that you feel satisfied versus situations in your life where you felt happy?
Yeah. If I think about relationship, that's an easy one. I've been with my partner now 8 or so years. And I would say I'm satisfied, like we're happy, but it's not like elated joy all the time. And if I compare and contrast that back to our early dating and courtship, like we were in a long distance relationship. So whenever you would see each other, it was like ecstatic, joyful, so freaking happy, over the moon. We've been apart for 3 to 8 weeks, and then you get to see them and it's like, they're your whole world. Your eyes light up. You're just so excited and happy to be with them. They can do no wrong in those moments, kind of thing. And just every moment was magical. And we were so happy in that time we got to be together. Now, the passage of time, living together, like no longer being long distance, you see them every day. You see them in their, their best clothes, their worst clothes, in a happy mood, in a bad mood. We're not ecstatic to see each other. It's not captivating. Not every moment is the best. It's just neutral. We're a family now. Most days are fine. They're good. Like nothing good nor bad has happened. We're good. And we feel very lucky and blessed to be in a satisfying relationship that is really not good nor bad most of the time. Most of the time it's in this really nice middle state. And I would say more good than bad does happen, but it's not exciting. It's not something that love stories are written about and blockbuster movies are being shot about. It's just this really normal existence that we are so satisfied in. And if you were to ask me each week, like on a scale from 0 to 10, how are you guys doing each week? It's like an 8, maybe a 7, maybe a 9, but it's rarely a 10, because we're not doing the kinds of things that are like ecstatically going to make us happy all the time, but we are satisfied, highly satisfied most of the time.
Right. I love how you said it, because I think that for most relationships, I mean, people are solidly in that neutral zone most of the time. And yes, they go out and do things together that make them happy, but it's not sustainable in a relationship to be happy all the time. Most of the time when you're with your partner, you're content, you're at peace together, you're comfortable with each other. And that puts you solidly in that neutral zone, which some people see that neutral zone as a bad zone to be in, but it's actually a very comforting zone to be in, I think. And so I think you described it really well. Can you talk about a time in your life where you chose satisfaction over happiness and how that was a better choice for you?
I mean, I'm not sure that it's necessarily, actually, I'll go with right now. So right now, I'm currently pregnant at the time. Right now. Yes, right now I'm pregnant.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And you know, this year, or for the last few years, I've been working to build my business and doing things that were making me happy. Like really had to be ambitious and working really long hours to build the business I wanted to build. And early in this pregnancy, I realized, holy crap, I can't work from 8 till 8. I can't get up and do like 2 or 3 hours on my online business before I work with my clients, or I have nothing for my clients. And I need a nap for 1 to 4 hours. And I don't know, I was maybe like 7 weeks into my pregnancy, and I had to be like, what are my goals this year? And how do I adjust those goals given the reality that's happening in my body that I can do nothing about for the foreseeable future? I want a baby more than I want the business goals. And so this year has been a practice in being satisfied with like the choices that I have made. And am I always thrilled about them? No. But this year has been a really good example of choosing to be satisfied with the life I have, and choosing to be grateful for the business I've built so far. That isn't where I want it to be, but that I could maybe, like, you know, I've got some like work done. Maybe next year I can work on it the way I want it to be. But this year has been a real practice in choosing to be satisfied with the things I have built, the things I have done, and operating within the limits of what I can do. And what I just can't, because my body is like, needs a nap, and I'm not a napper. And I'm like, why, body? Why do you want to have a nap? But we do. I guess growing a human is really hard work. So it just is the way it is. And I have to choose also to be satisfied in a way with that, without being hard on myself or down on myself or disappointed for what I can't do. It's like being grateful for what I am able to do, that I'm able to carry a baby. And here we are working hard to like do as much of both as I can. But it's certainly not the way that I thought it was going to go.
I think you said it well too, and that gratitude is a part of being satisfied, because you can't always, since so much of life is out of our control, right? You have to be able to pivot and find another door, find another way to find the satisfaction that you're looking for, since things happen that are out of your control, like the fact that you needed more naps than you're used to in your life. And then you had to figure out a way to pivot and turn it into something that you could feel grateful about, just in a different way and with different time frames for the goals that you so wanted to achieve. In my book, I talk about 6 techniques that lead to a sustainably satisfied life: avoiding assumptions, active self-reinforcement and self-care, closing out tasks, decision-making, facing fears, reducing people-pleasing behaviors. Can you tell me which one of those you think you personally struggle with the most of those, and why?
So when I think about like currently the thing that usually for most of my life I struggled the most was avoiding assumptions. And when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about them in my romantic partnership. I was thinking about with him how whenever in our early relationship, when things didn't go right, I would chalk it up to it's because he doesn't care about me. Or that was almost always, he doesn't care about me, he doesn't love me, he doesn't want to be with me, he doesn't care. And so I would attribute, he's late getting me from the airport, he forgot to call, he, I don't know, wanted to hang out with his friends, he fed the dog at the wrong time. You know, like I could make all of these things out to be about that he didn't care about me. Now I've done some work on that, and thankfully now that's adjusted. But I'd say that's been like a huge part of my work as a person, to really work on avoiding the assumption that he didn't care. And that's been such an ongoing practice. Thankfully now, for the most part, I can be like, he does care. He just makes other decisions that I don't like. But that was like active years of work to check the assumption that I was making and then like redirect it and see him at like face value without reading into whatever I thought his motivation might be.
As somebody that struggles with that one the most as well, I get how hard it is to create those new neural pathways to make sure that you don't do it. Do you think that your personal satisfaction has had an impact on your overall confidence and resilience?
Yeah, I think they're all linked together a little bit. Mm-hmm. But when I think like when I make the choice to be satisfied, like this year, I am more confident each day that because I'm not beating myself up for what I'm not achieving. Mm-hmm. I'm more resilient to bounce back and work towards my small goals I'm setting for myself this year, because I'm like, I've adjusted what my goals are. So if I choose to be satisfied in the life I'm living in, I can adjust the rest accordingly. Whereas if I am not meeting a high standard that I can't meet, then I'm just beating myself up for like, why haven't you met that, Amber? Oh, you're not good enough. Oh, you should do X, Y, and Z other thing to be good enough. And then my confidence tanks it. So they're also highly linked together for me. But I know in my life this year, I was really hard on myself at the beginning of the year in my early pregnancy when I just couldn't achieve the things I wanted. And since I made a choice to adjust my goals and be satisfied with what I have, certainly my confidence and resilience has gone up over the course of the year for sure.
That's great. I do agree with you. They are intertwined. The more satisfied you are because you are pivoting, adjusting, it's much easier to bounce back and have that empowered sense of self because of the choices that you're making.
For sure. Totally.
How do you feel that communication helps create a satisfying relationship?
Well, if I can communicate a few things. So if I can communicate, my partner can communicate to me the things that we're doing well. You hear about what you like about each other, you hear about you're doing well, like that feels good. It feels fantastic to hear about what you like and what you're doing well. So that helps breed satisfaction. If you are hearing satisfaction from your partner and you're focused in your mind on the satisfaction, things your partner's doing that are satisfying, and you're verbalizing them, what you focus on, you find. What you focus on grows, right? And so if you're verbalizing those things, it's going to help. So communicating what's going right is going to help you feel more satisfied. Additionally, if there's things going wrong, if you don't express them and express them well, your needs aren't going to be met. And it is reasonable to have a need and want your need to be met. Now, what I've learned through myself and working with so many couples is most of us don't have like a valid way to express our needs, and we do so in ways that hinder getting our needs met. So, if I've been upset because my partner's been coming home late, if I they come in and I get mad at them and I'm like, you don't care. That's what I was, you don't care. You're home late again. You never think about me. I'm not setting them up with the path to make this better. I'm not setting them up with the path to have my needs met. If I can communicate, hey, I've been frustrated this week. You've been out really late. I can't sleep until you get home. What I need is for us to have an agreed upon time you're coming home so we can all get a good sleep and get to bed. I want you to see your friends, but can we set that up together? When I can think about how I communicate and present my needs in a positive way, express myself without blame, without assumptions, without contempt, without criticism, I'm so much more likely to have those needs met. And my partner is going to be a much more willing participant in meeting my needs when I can find out ways to communicate them. So I think most of us, it is nice if most of us are satisfied in our relationships most of the time. Not to say all the time, because we're not.
Right.
I heard a thing, I think it was from Christine Pedesky a number of years ago, that was like, maybe you pick a partner because 50% of the time you see things eye to eye. But that's going to mean 25% of the time it's your way, 25% of the time it's their way. So in relationships, being satisfied isn't 100%. Like it's not. It's never going to be. You're with a different person. And so, yeah, I mean, even just adjusting from I'm going to get my way 100% of the time to adjusting to I'm going to get my way 75% of the time, hopefully, that helps you be satisfied. But you have to communicate, express what you want. So often enough, you can get your needs met more often than not. So I think those are two ways. Like I said, communicating the positives and asking for what you need in positive ways, expressing yourself in positive ways is going to help you be satisfied. Is going to help build trust, connection, relationship by expressing yourself in positive ways. Because we know from the research, when you do it in negative ways, it destroys the foundation of relationship. It creates the platform for dissatisfaction and breaking up. And no one got together to be broken up with. Like, that's not why we're together. So figuring out how you talk to your partner really, really, really matters.
And also what you said is important, which is managing your expectations. And so everything that you just said, and you included in that, how important it is to manage your expectations so that you don't expect to be in sync, even when it comes to satisfaction all the time.
Yeah.
When I was talking earlier about the 6 techniques in my book, avoiding assumptions, self-reinforcement or self-care, closing out past decision-making, facing fears, and reducing people-pleasing behaviors, which of those have you noticed that couples struggle with the most, and why?
So this is from research. This is just from my clinical practice. I notice couples struggle with avoiding assumptions. So I notice assumptions come up where I hear them a lot is when they give their partner a negative attribution when they're bringing up a complaint. So for example, you're so selfish, you didn't think of me when you made plans with your friends. You didn't even consider what would be going on for me and how that would affect me. So the assumption there, the partner is selfish and they didn't consider them. Well, that is something that gets, yeah. And so I notice a lot of the time people will project what they think their partner is thinking that led them to that conclusion, but very often they're wrong. And if you tell your partner you did this because of whatever the assumption is, they're not hearing the message about what you're upset about. They're going to hear the assumption and then they're going to work to correct the assumption. And so you get into, like, when you give them a negative attribution, that becomes a criticism, and then you get the criticism defensiveness spiral. So you criticize them with your assumption, they defend themselves, and then you probably criticize them more and they defend themselves more, and around it goes, right? So I see that as one of this, like, it just slips in. People probably don't even realize or think they're making assumptions about their partner. But if you're attributing a negative trait that you think they think when you're telling them a complaint, that's an assumption.
Right. And then you don't realize all of the social spiral that you get into after that. And then you end up not really being heard, or the right thing doesn't get heard. And then, and then people complain that they're talking at cross purposes, right? Because of the language about assumptions, not about what they really wanted to get across.
Totally.
What's your best advice for couples that you feel are over focusing on happiness instead of focusing on satisfaction?
What is it in Esther Perel's talk about something that she starts talking about, like, we're all looking to be more happy or something like that. So I can't remember what she says. I should have thought about this more. But anyway, when we're focusing on happiness, like, yes, of course we all want to be happy. But I think about your life. Like, are you happy every day? Every single day? Are you like a 10 out of 10 happy? If so, write a book. Tell us all how to be 10 out of 10 happy every day. Like, that sounds awesome. But for most of us, hopefully, we achieve some sort of peaceful contentment, satisfaction. And it's good enough. And then we get to experience happiness as an emotion that comes and goes, and sadness, or discontent is an emotion that comes and goes. And I would just think about adjusting to kind of match how you live your life most of the time. It's unrealistic to think you're going to be delightedly, stokedly happy with your partner most of the time. Hopefully sometimes, but not all of the time, because that's not how we live in a state of existence all the time. And if you can write a book, that'd be cool. And so it's just coming to kind of grips with reality that we're not always going to be happy. We're not always going to be in bliss or oblivion. Like, that satisfaction. Generally, this is good. Generally, I am pleased. Generally, we're trending in a long, good way that I can live sustainably for the rest of my life with highs and lows. Because just being happy all the time, it's an emotion that comes, the emotion goes, and what are you left with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, very well said. Do you think, I mean, based on what you just said, I mean, do you feel that the outcomes are better for couples that recognize that they should be focusing on satisfaction instead of happiness?
I'm not sure that I've ever talked about it with a couple specifically, so I'm not sure that I have like specific specific sample size to reference from. I know people, when I meet with them personally, and they're talking about like, I deserve to be happier, I will talk about that with them. Like, tell me what happier means. Tell me what it would look like to be happy every day. And very often what I find is people are often, when they're saying those things, looking for contentment or satisfaction. Mm-hmm. Like they're dissatisfied, they're looking for satisfaction. But there are exceptions that are looking for like perfection, happiness, and then we have to manage some expectations.
So you feel that if they are looking for that, you can't, that the outcomes that they're looking for can be easily adjusted to something like satisfaction, so that it's hard to figure out what the, you know, whether the outcomes would be different with people looking for satisfaction versus happiness, because you can help them pivot to satisfaction.
Yeah, and I haven't explicitly asked if they're looking for satisfaction or happiness, so I'm not sure. Yeah. But I hear a lot of people say like, oh, I want to be happier.
Right.
I think what most people are looking for is to be more satisfied.
I agree. I think the vernacular is a huge problem. I think people get stuck on a vernacular, and then because our brains are listening, our brains are coming up with, oh, we need to be like, you know, gleeful and joyful all the time. But I don't think that that's really what people are looking for. I think people are really looking for peace and contentment, which is satisfaction. And then there ends up being a glitch in our systems that needs to be renamed. And that's why I want to start this satisfaction revolution. But do you have any nuggets of information that you feel like I've missed, or that you could add to this topic of happiness versus satisfaction that you think would be useful for the listeners today?
One thing that just crossed my mind is like the difference between early courtship and being happy or satisfied versus being in a long-term partnership and being happy or satisfied. Just a lot of my longer-term clients, a trend I've noticed, and something I struggled with when my relationship kind of transitioned from being new to not as new, is it's not as electric. It's not as exciting. It's not as high highs, and hopefully not as low lows. It's a bit more boring the longer you've been together. And many of my longer term couples start to say things like, why can't it be like it was in the beginning? Or that maybe they've met someone else and there's starting to be sparks like it was in the beginning. And to recognize some of the happiness, some of the high highs, some of the electricity, a long-term partnership come from the new love energy, come from it being something that is brand new. And then we're helped out with hormones and neurotransmitters to feel that happiness in the new early stages of relationship and how relationship feels and what is a measure of great satisfaction is going to change over the relationship's lifespan. So how you felt happy or how you felt satisfied at 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years is going to be very different than how you feel satisfied or what a happy emotion might feel like at 3 years, 6 years, 8 years, 16 years, 25 years, 40 years, 50 years, 70 years, because our brains are wired differently over, like it changes throughout the span of that relationship. The goal of your brain in that new phase of relationship from an evolutionary perspective is to keep you together long enough to procreate and have a child. And then, you know, most of us, not all of us, but many of us are no longer doing it within that kind of 2-year span, but that's that new love energy span. And then we have to learn how to be together. Now, TV, books, they show us usually beginning phases of relationship, or they show us like happy long-term partnership. What we don't have good models for is what relationships look like 2 years plus in, and what is contentment 2 years plus in, what is satisfaction 2 years plus in, and that it's going to feel really different than the early beginning stages. I remember with my now husband, we were dating, and we've been together, I don't know, 16, 18 months, something like that. And we moved in together. And I was expecting moving in with him to be like the electricity, the fireworks, the sparks, the not being able to stay away from each other like it was when we were dating long distance. Guys, I had the knowledge. I knew better. But I still thought that that's what it was going to be like. But what actually happened was it wasn't like that. He, more quickly than me, became used to me being around all the time. He wasn't as elated or excited to see me, and I felt rejected. I felt really hurt. I didn't know why he didn't want me, so I made up assumptions about why he didn't want me. It was because, you know, I assumed I was too fat or wasn't pretty enough or he wasn't attracted to me. It was zero of those things. He was zero of the assumptions that I made, so I had to check all my assumptions, which I made, which were not helpful. But rather, it was just a normal transition from being long distance, the length of time we had been together, and transitioning from that early stage couple to someone that had been together now longer. The circumstances had changed, and we had to find our new normal and figure out what was new and satisfying at that part in our relationship. And it wasn't like a seamless transition. We really had to think about it. We had to talk about it. We had to communicate about our needs and our feelings and stay away from assumptions. I made lots of them. It wasn't good. So that we could create a satisfying relationship for the new phase of our relationship that was so different from the beginning. So I'll just say satisfaction changes over the course of your relationship. I know when we have this baby, what is satisfying to us now is gonna, hopefully I'm a little wiser, I don't know. But, you know, I've done some research on transition from a duo to a trio, and I know that things are going to change a lot. And I know that we're going to go through an adjustment as a couple about what is going to be satisfying and meaningful, especially some of like the things we do together every day change, our dynamic as a couple, our time together, how we express affection when we do things like that. It's going to change. And we're going to need to renegotiate our lives for the new stage of our relationship so we can be satisfied again. And I'm sure early parenthood is going to be filled with emotional highs of happiness and joy and like terrible lows of like, why did I do this? And this is awful. And it doesn't come with a return policy or a manual. And why did I do this with you? I'm sure there's going to be highs and lows, but hopefully we can work together to find satisfaction again in the new phase of our journey.
Right. So I think that evolving into each new stage of a new normal of satisfaction over the course of a lifespan is something that people need to keep in mind, that once you find like a cadence, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the cadence forever. It keeps, you know, however you work together synergistically can change over the developmental lifespan of a relationship over and over and over again.
Yeah, for sure.
You have so many important things to talk to my audience about. Can you share your website address so people know how to find you?
Yeah, for sure. So confusing thing, my name is Amber with an A, but my website is Ember Relationship Psychology with an E. So Ember like burning ember. So my website, www.emberrelationshipsychology.com. My Instagram, Ember Relationship Psychology. So Ember with an E, Relationship Psychology is where you can find me in all the places.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on here today. Your stories were great. You're sharing your knowledge, your experiences. It was fantastic. I'm sure that everybody that was listening enjoyed hearing everything that you had to say so much. It was amazing. And if anybody is interested in finding out more about sustainable life satisfaction, you can find tidbits and information on sustainable life satisfaction on my website at guttmanpsychology.com, and find out more about my book, Beyond Happiness, The 6 Secrets of Lifetime Satisfaction, either on my website or at a bookstore near you. Take care.